Yeah, that's right. We are back. Tonight I'm pretty excited because we've got our 12,000 subscriber live stream. Now, for those of you who are new to the live stream format, it's basically me waffling on about skateboarding, hopefully prompted by yourselves in the comments. So please do stop by, say hi, and if there's any interjections or any ways you'd like to steer my waffling, that would be most appreciated. I've got a little beverage here, cup of tea. So starting off, many thanks to I Wonder. They've sent across what can only be described as probably the best presented wheels I've ever seen. Look at those bad boys. Comes in a rather nice box. And these are all-terrain skateboard wheels. I have to say they look good enough to eat. It's absolutely fantastic. At the moment, I'm using the pneumatic tyres on the electric skateboard, and my problem is that those could well get punctured, and I really don't fancy carrying that electronic skateboard doing the walk of shame and just wheeling it back with a punctured tyre. So the beauty of the I Wonders is they are like a regular skateboard wheel. They're solid sort of urethane, and they've got a bit of grippage, and then you put your bearings in, and then there's also a package for the belt drive just to make them work. But that is the Cloud wheel. So if you're in the market for a set of them, this is going to be an upcoming video. I'm going to fit these onto the electronic skateboard and see how she goes. Also got the next skateboard video, which is going to be reviewing the new Andy Anderson deck. This is the symmetrical twin tip number, the Heron 2 egg, and it is amazing to ride because it has got no end. So when you pop it on the coping, any old way will do, and it is round the right way. And it's been inspiring me to learn some tricks that mean that when you're landing the trick, it doesn't really matter which way the skateboard is round. So I've been doing some body varials, and I've been doing some shove-its and various things where it just doesn't matter how the board ends up. It's 8.7 inches wide, and it's got the flight board construction, and I've taken the liberty of putting some new trucks on that aren't broken in, just so that basically there's no preference to the end. And I've also put no stickers on, and the grip tape job is symmetrical, so I haven't got a clue which is front and back. And the Ace trucks have been going an absolute treat. I was interested, I've heard such good things about the Ace trucks, and these are the new AF1 hollows. Just have a little sip of drink. These are the new AF1 hollows, 8.5 inch, so they're just a bit smaller than the deck, so it will sit there on a rail stand pretty nicely. And so far they've been good as gold. They came with what can only be described as chewing gum for bushings, and people say that the Ace trucks are amazing for their turning, and I would say that's probably in no small part to the chewing gum bushings that come with them. So I've put in my regular medium bones bushings, and since I've done that, it's pretty much been business as usual. They feel really good, not a million miles away from the Independent. So another video I'm going to do is going to be comparing the Ace hollow trucks to the Independent hollow trucks. And here we are, we've got loads of people checking in. Hello from Pakistan. Oh my goodness me, this is an international event already. Skater Scott, hey, nice to see you, Skater Scott. We've got my mate Neil Hester, who loves a bit of waffle, and that is just as well, Neil, you are in the right place if you like a bit of waffle. We will be talking skateboarding tonight, and it will probably be as detailed as you could imagine it would be if you're into skateboarding. And oh my goodness, I do love skateboarding. Happy Saturday from Oklahoma. So that's in the USA. Oh my goodness. Hi from Canada. Adventure Will Skate. That was Orcus Malorcus from Oklahoma. Oh my goodness. Wayne Sarah Burns is giving me the old shacker there. Sensei Marcus. Evening, John. I was lucky enough to take a trip out to the XC Skateboard Centre in Hemel Hempstead, and I met Marcus, who is a ripping bowl skater, and he helped me confront my fears, what can only be described as my fears of the pool there in Hemel Hempstead, which is quite an undertaking. It's got the biggest coping I've found yet. I reckon it's a good 70 millimeters, and it's all gnarled up, and there's not really much cement in between each coping block, so there's a good chance you're gonna come a cropper. And it felt like a major achievement just to get a little chicken scratch grind on it. And Marcus was there, and he was cheering me into things that I was skeptical about, and his good vibes was helping me make a few things. So that was a really, really nice evening. And we've got Nadim Music Production. Come to Madrid. We need an emotional session here. My goodness, this is truly international. So yeah, I love a bit of Spanish, Spain action. Tom Weston, good evening, John. Nice one, Tom. Anton says, hi from Chile. Hey, hi from Chile, brilliant. And Marcus is saying gnarly shallows at the XC Centre. I'm going to do a video on the XC skate pool. It really was a fantastic evening, and I was blown away by the quality of that skating pool. I had skated it once before, but I was even more of a beginner than I am now. Proper, like, couldn't even drop in. So I think on the first drop in, I shot off the front. On a second drop in, I sketchily made it and then went flying down the waterfall. And then the third one in, I actually made the drop in, but then went over the waterfall on the wrong direction. It's a little bit slippery at the XC. And if you don't know what you're doing, off I went, and that was really my entire go at the pool. I decided to give it a miss. So coming back, I was quite excited, but also a little bit like nervous, and it wasn't anything like I remembered, if I'm honest. It'd been long enough for me to forget all about it, so it felt like my first time in. Anyway, and I'm yakking already. I haven't even got started. Brussels sprout, yeah, that was a bit weird. Just watching a clip of myself at XC Skate Park when the notification came through. Indeed, yeah, I will put together a video of that trip to the XC Skate Park and talk you through that pool there, because I can't wait to get back. It's got a deaf box, which regular viewers will know I've got a bit of a penchant for. I've been over the one in St Ives. Can only be described as emotional when that goes wrong. And I would say the shallow end is definitely taller than St Ives, but not as steep. And the whole pool in general, I reckon, is somewhere between St Ives and Concrete Waves in terms of gnar factor. But they've all got their own idiosyncrasies. I'd say the coping at XC is definitely ridiculous. I'm going to put together an edit highlights of this chat where I take out all the ums and the ahs and the bits where I repeat myself, and I'll put in some pictures of what I'm talking about so you can get a feel for that pool at XC. But if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Anton, thanks for yeah, nice one. And Marcus, dude, you were shredding the pool. That's very kind, Marcus. Thomas W, hi John, American in Prague here. Wow, bit of Czech Republic. Love your how-to videos, especially on things like transition. As a newer skater, I appreciate the tips. Thanks, amigo. That's very kind, Thomas. Yeah, but as you know, I sort of nipped through learning things, and I actually video it in real time. So I've had a few people say, oh, I like the fact that you pretend to do the falling off, and I'm like, oh, I wish I was pretending to fall off, because it's all legit. So when I film the trick that I'm trying to learn, it is from the start, and that's why you get all of the kerfuffle and carry on. But I've sort of learnt that some of that is some of the more valuable stuff, especially for me looking back on it, because I can remember all the mistakes that I made, and I think it's a bit more realistic to include all that. And it's certainly funnier because sometimes seeing go flying is fairly amusing. Nadhi Music Production, followed you since the very beginning, and your current level is pretty amazing. Those frontside grinds are another level. How do you manage pain and courage to get to that level? That is a great question. Let me just have a little bit of tea. Yeah, I think if you've played the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game, you get a special bar. And as you sort of get more tricks under your belt, the special bar goes up and it becomes easier to do the attempts, and that sort of feels like a session for me. I start off nervous and very, very concerned, and then as I start to skate, the adrenaline levels go up, and the sort of health and safety monitor seems to go out the window, and I become so consumed with the obsession of trying to make whatever I'm doing that it seems to allow me to throw caution to the wind. And I also don't really notice when I've come a crop or any of the pain or anything. It seems to be like a shield of steel. The next morning, however, is another story, and I often wake up the next morning going, what on earth has happened there? And then when I look back at the footage, I'll realise and remember, oh, I cracked myself on the coping, that'll be it. But it's sort of like a bit of amnesia, and I'm quite competitive with myself to the point where I'm sort of a bad loser as well with myself. So if I can't do something, I become obsessed and I focus on that. And I can't leave the skate park until I've done it, which is sort of the motivational factor. So I think that's probably why some of the harder tricks you'll see an awful lot of slamming, because I haven't got the skills to do it, but I refuse to acknowledge that and give up. So yeah, I guess it's sort of a bit of stupidity in there as well, I guess. Spencer Horton, well done Bishmeister with the 12k, bud. Oh, thank you, Spencer. Spencer's a really old friend of mine and probably the first real skateboarder I ever met. This was at the time when I started playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and Spencer came out to work in Greece where I was a windsurfing instructor, and I was asking Spencer about his board riding background because he was learning to windsurf and getting on pretty nicely with it and progressing quickly, and he said he was a skateboarder, and I was like, wow, that sounds like an exciting thing. I didn't realise quite how good Spencer was at skateboarding at that time, but Spencer's another guy who's built a backyard ramp and then got back into it a little later on. Nice one, Spence. Spencer's also a wicked guitar player, and he went and did some big gigs before I did them, so it's all round good stuff. Mark. Hi, John. Ever skated the House of Vans Bowl under the Waterloo railway stations? It's a great question, Mark. I haven't, and I'd love to. And the issue is that whenever I'm in London town, there isn't a session available. So for the Vans skate park in London, you don't have to pay for it, but they've just got such limited sessions, and you can't just sort of rock in there. So it's not open from like 10 till 10, like the skate parks I like to frequent, where you can come and go as you like at a time that suits you. So I've never managed to tally up my trip in London and my spare time whilst in London with that skate park, but I can't wait to give it a go. It's all built under the arches, and there's a rather interesting looking bowl where you go over the top of a doorway. Julio Sardinia says, hugs from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Oh, Brazil. Crikey, there's some good skateboarders that come from Brazil and some amazing skateboarding spots. My friend Neil Hester, who checked in earlier, went to Brazil for quite an extended break. And some of the spots that he posted, especially the Pedro Barros pool and vert ramp, look absolutely next level. So that's the Andy Anderson symmetrical twin tip heron. So that'll be the next video coming out, and I've been getting on with that a treat. I've been delaying it because I really want to give it a good once over. It has got a few bits of scraping, and you can see that the nose and the tail are pretty much even, and the trucks are pretty much evenly worn because there is no end to it. And yeah, I'm just going to give it a little longer just so I can really give it a go. I was going to compare it to the other Andy Anderson deck, the standard 7-incher, which obviously is totally shaped and has a definite nose and tail. I didn't know whether that would be appropriate or whether I should just do it as a standalone thing. I don't know. Maybe that's another video comparing the two. But it definitely feels a bit more nimble because it's only 8.7 inches. Neil said, yeah, man. I don't know if I can pronounce that, but anybody looking at the live field will know Florianopolis, Brazil, skate heaven. Yes. Natty M Music Production is saying, hey John, do you have a clear goal with the channel, or are you just going with the flow? It's interesting. I tell you what, this is all if I'm honest, it's a complete happy accident that's got totally out of hand. I made the first video by mistake, and I lucked on this process that's probably appropriate only to me, but for some reason the camera seemed to provide the sort of extra bit of encouragement for me to go that extra bit further past my fear barrier just to get the trick. And when I started the channel, I was doing the very basic. I was a complete beginner, so I was doing things like learning the rock to fakie on a micro ramp, and then learning the rock and roll and trying to get the axle stall and the very, very early things. And I found all those too terrifying, and I was going to the skate park on my own, and I just would end up leaving with my head bowed every time, just sort of making excuses, going, oh, you know, it's not for me. And I found that if I went there with the idea that I was going to record a how to learn the rock to fakie video, that I would end up at least doing one or two. And if you go back to my early videos, they're probably 2.5 years ago now, you really will see that I only make one. And then I call it's a one and done. And that was a sort of, it started to become a mixed blessing, because I was starting to at least learn a few things, but at the same time I didn't realize that making one, you know, that didn't mean that I'd learn anything really. So, and then I was plowing on to the next trick to try and, you know, do the next video. So what ended up happening is I ended up learning pretty much nothing. So then I had to go back and relearn everything all over again. And I've since learned that basically if I can do like 20 or 30 makes when I'm trying to learn a trick, it gives me an opportunity to get different angles so the presentation's better. But more importantly, it helps me to actually learn the trick. So what I've found with the harder tricks, especially like the coping, pull coping, Smith grind, the front side grind, the front side 5-0, any of those feeble grinds, I'll do that in like a week, and I'll do that over 2 or 3 sessions. So I really bed it in and get a good idea of all the pitfalls and the possibilities. And then further than that, I've learned if I can try and in one session do 3 in a row, that's starting to knock on the door of understanding and getting a feeling for the trick. But I'm yakking again. It's just the mental process is sort of trying to, but there's so many tricks. How does one retain them all? How does one keep them all up? I'm going back to things now like the body varial rock to fakie and the body varial axle stall and things like that, which I sort of tinkered with when I first built my mini ramp in the back garden, and I haven't done them ever since, so I may as well be starting from scratch. But in answer to your question, no, I haven't got a clear goal with the channel other than my progression, and it's actually turned out as a really lovely accidental side bit that other people are sort of getting involved in skateboarding, and people are saying very kind things to me, which are very humbling about, you know, being inspired to get back on or being inspired to take it up. And that's just amazing. That was, if I'm honest, that was never a goal, because I would never imagine that I could, you know, do that. But it's been lovely to hear. So that's sort of an evolution of the channel. But no, in terms of figures and in terms of subscribers and in terms of all that, I don't really worry about. That's not really what I'm interested in. And that's proven by the fact that I'm running a niche of a niche skateboard channel aimed at people getting back into skateboarding, which will only ever be a certain amount. It's not Lego or any of the things that my kids dip into, which have got 1 billion people watching just because they're so, you know, broad. After the 2016 Olympics, we got so many international class bowls and verts. That's Julio Sardinia. I'm talking about Brazil, I would say. Fantastic. Brussels sprout, what width is the board? The Andy Anderson, the new board is 8.7. So the original Anderson came in either the 8.4 E5E, that's the small version. This one's up for sale actually, if anybody wants it. I'm just moving it on. It's too small for me, but it's a very nice one. I did a video on this when I set it up as a bit of a freestyle board. And that's a small Anderson, and then the big Anderson's 9 inches, which we've already seen. And then the egg is 8.7 and it feels just nice. I always felt like something in between might be quite nice. And hey presto, there she blows. Yep, Neil's giving it a thumbs up. Brilliant stuff. So a bit more tea. Hopefully you got your beverages charged at home. So what else is new? I do these live streams sort of around about each 1,000 subscribers. It's just an arbitrary figure to trigger one. And they usually come in around about 3 months. So it's been taking like 3 months to get to the next 1,000. And it's a good way to welcome everybody in that's new to the channel, because I like the idea of it all being a community all together. Everybody's struggling for the common goal of getting better and enjoying skateboarding. And I've been quite busy, and we're now more at sort of 12,500, which is pretty nice. So the 13,000 skate party could be sooner than I thought it would be. Tom Weston, what website are you selling that board on? Oh, Tom, it's on eBay, but if you want to come direct to me, Tom, we can sort something out, because I'm only interested in recouping a bit of cash. It's not a crazy eBay special where I'd like £400, please. There was a time when shapeboards on eBay were like, just name a figure you can say without laughing, it seemed, and it was absolute madness. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I digress. Yes, so you could PM me, Tom, if you'd fancy such a item. So what else has been going on? I've been skating concrete waves as much as I can, and I've been really enjoying trying out this new egg board. I went a little bit stale for the first time ever. I don't want to say stale, I just like it was almost like a plateau, because I get an enormous amount of stoke from progression and trying to get better. And I'm just feeling like maybe I'm getting to a stage now where the progression is going to be, it's going to take longer. It's not going to be turn up to the ramp and learn 3 new tricks. It's going to be like turn up to the ramp for 3 months and learn 1 trick. And that obviously takes a lot more perseverance, and that can be psychologically a lot tougher. If you haven't checked out Neil Hester's channel, Neil's put up a really interesting video that I enjoyed, which was about the things that people don't tell you about trying to learn to vert skate. And the main one that resonated with me is how long it takes to learn something on vert. And it's a long, long time compared to a mini ramp or something, because the psychological fear is so great. Now, Neil's been learning the rock and roll, which is very nice to watch. And I've sort of been tinkering with the backside air and the rock to fakie, and any of those, you'd only consider them really as setup tricks, but they're still just terrifying and hard, and it just takes ages. So yeah, Will Paris is saying, yo. Hi, Wills. Nice one. Yeah, so that trip to XC was amazing. I'm going to be embarking on a tour of the UK, because the rock and roll band I play in it are doing a tour. So I will be going to various venues and I'll be trying to do little skate park tours as I go. The last tour that I did was quite fun that way, but I'll be back up to Scotland and up north, and there's a never-ending amount of lovely old times. Neil's saying that I predict winter weather vert progression because the weather will dictate the indoor sessions. Yeah, that's right, Neil. The issue with Mount Hawke this year is that the roof blew off. But I shouldn't laugh. The roof blew off in February, and it didn't really get fixed until the early summer. And then we had an absolutely Bobby Dazzler of a summer, so it was very hard to justify going indoors and sweating it out on the vert ramp. And then by the time the lovely summer had ended, there was about 3 weeks to the vert competition at Mount Hawke. So my lofty ambitions the year before turned into, oh, I just hope I can put down the same run as I did last year, which is what I ended up doing. So I was like, oh, when I did the competition last year, I was like, oh, imagine what I'll be doing next year. And it's like, oh, exactly the same as what you'll be doing next year. It was quite disappointing. Nadium Music Productions. I recently saw a video that says skateboarding requires quite a particular set of mental skills related with pain tolerance and perseverance, but also some kind of hook to the huge high of achievement. Any thoughts? Yeah, I would definitely say that skateboarding requires a certain type of individual, and I think the brilliant culture and the respect built around skateboarding and the sort of vibe you get when you go to the skate park is probably built by the fact that everybody is in the same boat and everybody knows how hard it is. So there's not many other sports where the whole place will stop when, you know, mate is doing his first drop in, because you know how hard it is and you feel the same stoke as you felt when you first dropped in watching another person drop in. I love it. The first drop in's amazing. And you get quite a few people coming through Mount Hawk vert ramp, which is a bit of a baptism of fire. 13.5 foot is one of the bigger ones in the country, and some amazing skaters come down on holiday, and you can see that that's a bit of a rite of passage that needs to be ticked off. And when I skate that ramp quite regularly, you know, there's usually at least one a session that will come and have that look on their face, and you know what's coming in. It's always the same level of stoke when they nudge over the top. Oh my goodness! And yeah, there's an amazing. There's if you watch Seinfeld, comedians in cars getting coffee. There's an amazing thing where Seinfeld, he makes his observation. He says that, you know, I see those skateboarders and I think they'll be all right. And he's noticed that the perseverance it takes, you know, if they applied that to some other area of their life, they'd be very successful, because I think his comments saying that, you know, that's what it takes to be successful in any area. But no, I think it's like, you know, don't you, if you go skateboarding, if you come an absolute cropper and then you immediately get back on and try again, you're a skateboarder, I reckon. And I reckon if you come a cropper and you go, oh, crikey, I've got a mortgage to pay, I better not, and you leave it and you don't come back to it, that's no worse, no judgment, but it's just perhaps you just haven't got, at that point, you haven't got that set of, that psychological makeup. No right or wrong, but you know, I guess everybody on here has got that obsession, and it's a small price to pay to get where you want to go. But that feeling is extraordinary. That stoke of achievement. So yeah, I think you're damn right there, sir. Perseverance, courage, and the mutual stoke are definitely the key. Skateboarding is so special, and there are no shortcuts. Yeah, you're damn right, Neil. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's what it is as well. I think everybody knows when they're watching what it took to do that. And yeah, some people have got better wiring. Some people are physically wired up better. And, you know, I have watched skateboarders do things first try, legit, and there's been no sort of hustle going on. I've never made anything first try. I'm just not that guy. My mate Sam that I skate with, he's sort of a first or second try sort of dude. And the worst thing you can do for Sam is to get him to think about it. He's just to feel, he looks at it, doesn't really need to know what the name of it is, and then he just copies it and can do it. And you can muck him up if you start to break it down, whereas I'm the opposite. I've got to really understand every single part. What, my big toe needs to point that way, and then I need to put, I want front foot like, what, 1 inch more? Oh, okay. And then what, bend my knees more? Yeah, probably. Commit, mean it. Well, you know, all of those little tiny bits, that's the way I need to, and I need to build it up from nothing, you know. So I guess different. So that, yeah, been skating. Oh, retracted. Didn't quite get a chance. That'll come back through, I reckon. So a bit more beverage. We live in a very lucky time down here in the southwest. A new pump track has just opened, so I took the nippers over there. I wasn't taking no for an answer. I got the squeegee out and the towels, and we mopped it off. It's down there at Goonhaven, which is on the way from where I live to Newquay. So it could be a good little place to get the quads fired up on the way to the Concrete Waves pool. And it's very fun, and the nippers were nipping round it. And I've done a little shorts video so you can take a peek at what the new Goonhaven pump track looks like. But that's another spot you can pop in on. Really are spoiled. Also, you need a learning strategy, especially the older you are, since you become great at risk management. Yeah, I think what Nadi Music is saying that is basically, if you learn that something's going to hurt, the older you get, the worse that gets, because you know more about falling over. And I think from watching my nippers learn, there's a real gay abandon to the approach, just because they haven't logged up those hours of falling off and hurting themselves. So ignorance is bliss. It's like, well, what could possibly go wrong? Woohoo! And in skateboarding, it's a little bit, there is a bit of just go fast and stay on about it. I heard that tip from an old pro skateboarder. I can't remember which one it was. His sort of mantra was just go as fast as you can, and just don't take your feet off the board. And that's been a strategy I've sort of been employing in that Concrete Waves pool to learn my coping grinds. And I find that as long as, like a rugby player, as long as I follow through and really mean it, I won't get hurt during the tackle. But I think if at any point I sort of slightly chickened off of any of those attempts, it could be emotional. Space back, yeah, been skating street for years, started to skate vert. Rock to fakie feels very different from a kickflip. How much time it takes to learn ramp tricks on the coping? Excuse me. Speaking for me, it was a long time. I mean, the axle stall took me, I still wouldn't want to totally claim the axle stall. I reckon I've just started to understand it, and it's been a solid 2.5 years of and that could just be me because I haven't understood a bit of it, or I'm not that talented or whatever. But I've just found the axle stall's been so hard to get the way that I want it, which is up, dab, loads of control, cross lock every time, shoulder in the right place, following through, speed on the exit and the entry, all those little nuances. But it's still not 100%. The rock fakie, I would say on the smaller ramps for me now is 100%. I'm quite confident I'm not going to come a cropper on that one. But it's still not done with the finesse and the style that I would like every time. And I've, again, been working on those 2.5 years. And it's very humbling. I'd say the tail stall is probably the most consistent trick I've got. And it's a setup trick. I still love doing it because I never thought I'd be able to do it. I really struggled with the tail stall. It took me a long time to try it because I was so scared of it. And I learned the fakie rock, which performed very much the same function. So once I learnt the fakie rock, I could get out of going fakie and go back forwards. And I also learnt the fakie pop rock as well. So the tail stall, I couldn't understand what the point of learning it was if I was so terrified of it. But obviously, as soon as I learned it, it opened up a whole world of new tricks. So it was well worth learning. Eric Dresden, go fast, stay low, stay on. Thank you, Neil. Yeah, that's exactly the one. Brussels sprout, any news on the park extension at Concrete Waves? Oh, I don't know anything about that, dude. I must be a bit out of the loop. If they're wanting to extend that park, that can only be the most amazing thing ever. Yeah, please do elaborate on that, Brussels sprout. I'd love to hear what they've got planned or what you've heard they've got planned. I haven't heard anything as yet. Yes, Eric Dresden. Brilliant. Kenneth Underwood, yeah, just got axle stalls. Took a couple of months. Was harder than it looks. Yeah, that's good, man. A couple of months is very, very good. I wish it took me a couple of months for no, nice one, dude. Rad t-shirt, John. By the way, I think the World Skate Vert contest is live streaming tomorrow. Oh, yeah, Matt. Brilliant. Matt Marlowe is a very, very good vert skateboarder and competes in the Masters, which is the category that I partake in. and I watched Matt and the guys and Neil all compete at the last Vert Series event, which was in Birmingham. Sadly, I couldn't make it because I had to play the electronic guitar. But this is their T-shirt, and it's a very nice design and very nice indeed. So hello to Matt, and well done. I watched the final, sir, and you were ripping it. Nadie M Music Production. I totally agree with the axle thing. One thing is to land your first axle, another is to really understand and master them. Yeah, I did a video, the 10 phases of the axle stall. I also did one for the Rock to Fakie, and the motivation behind those videos was really trying to get it more cemented in my mind. So they were sort of for me, which is a little bit selfish, I know. But the 10 phases of the axle stall, it helped me break down all the mistakes I'd made along the way and tried to cement not to make them. And one of the big ones was this not committing the shoulder into the turn, and then that just led, basically the board will follow the shoulder, so if you don't commit your shoulder, ended up coming up feeble. And I've also noticed that quite a lot of other axle stall practitioners come up feeble, and through watching their body position I've also noticed that this shoulder being committed seems to be quite a key thing. So I've started to try and do it, and it's very scary because it feels like you're turning your entire back on the coping, and on the backside axle still totally unsighted, so it's a bit of a Hail Mary. I guess the worry is that you're just not convinced those trucks and those wheels are going to grip the coping and hold your entire weight. So I find it very scary to do, but hopefully we're starting to get towards the tail end of learning it. But what I found with skateboarding is just that 10 levels, there's always another level, there's always a bit more panache, there's always a bit more control, there's always another way to do it. You always see a guy who's got it to the next level just come. I love those axle stalls where they come up and just, it's a light taparoo, maybe a couple of little taps just to show that the control is there before going back in. It's a beautiful thing. Neil Hester is, I've been uploading footage of the Creation Vert series if anyone is in. I've been watching it, Neil. That's where I've managed to watch the Masters final and the best trick. There's also the extension jam, which is, oh my goodness. I think the problem with elite vert skateboarding is the better that the elite vert skater becomes, the easier they make it look. And I think it's a real shame that the layperson, they would appreciate, wow, that looks cool, or wow, that looks impressive. But some part of me wishes that every person that ever watches vert has at least once stood at the top of a vert ramp with the idea of maybe going down it on a skateboard, because then the appreciation just goes through the roof, because you're like, that is mental. Because I've fallen from the top of there onto my shoulder and it was really unpleasant, and that looks to me like the trick that guy is doing there is a high chance of that happening. Yeah, thanks Neil, definitely checking that out. Yeah, Neil's got loads of good clips from the Birmingham skateboarding event last weekend. That thing of turning your back to the coping was definitely a pivotal moment for me, excuse the pun. Tom Weston, Neil, great video, really enjoyed watching the vert skating. Nice one. Brussels Sprout, I did hear that when I was there, a couple of things the council were talking about were toilets and running water. And the guy I was talking to was saying it was planned to have some smaller stuff. Oh, behind the hipped quarter. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I think I mean, it's all personal, isn't it? I reckon the best way to make skateboarders moan is to build them something to skate. That's probably true, and everybody's got their own favourites, but I'm always amazed when I go to skate parks, and I am lucky to travel around. I'm always amazed that even some of the bigger places don't have a nice basic mini ramp, which for me is, you know, some of the best fun I can have. When I've travelled to a city, I put skate parks near me, and top of my wish list is a little 3 or 4 foot mini ramp, because I know I'm going to go there, I'm going to have fun, I'm not going to completely nail myself with any touch wood, hopefully. Might be able to learn a new trick as well. I'm not going to be terrified. But I'm always amazed sometimes that you go to places and they haven't got that facility. And I would say Concrete Waves would definitely fit in that bracket. There are places that you can do mini ramp training, but none of them are a dedicated mini ramp as such. They're all like parts of the park that function as that. So it would be lovely at Concrete Waves. I mean, got to talk about being spoiled. I don't think one could whinge, but if they had a dedicated mini ramp, I certainly would be even more excited than I am anyway, because I love that spot. 2 million estimated extra tourism into Newquay. Yeah, not half. No, I mean, you can do your sums. I used to travel down to Cornwall. I could tell you exactly how much I spent doing that trip, and that trip was pretty much based around skating Concrete Waves and Mount Ork. So those facilities, if you imagine there's 1,000 people like me, and imagine that each time you come down you're spending 500 quid, all of a sudden, you know, you've got that amount of cash coming into the local economy, be it shops or B&Bs or whatever, you know. So yeah, I think it's quite an easy one to justify. Will Paris is saying, oh, I wouldn't hold your breath. Hey, all. Nice one, Martin Jones. Nice to see you. Kenny Thunderwood, you. Skateboarding is something that is never mastered. The minute you think you've got it, it will check you. Love, it will. Yeah. I think I've only been frustrated with skateboarding 3 times, and it was my mistake every time. And the mistake that I made was psychologically turning up to the park thinking that I had something. Oh, yeah, I've got it. And then the frustration of having that elevated expectation of myself dashed on the rocks. Probably the most frustrated I've ever been is the axle stall. And I went to the little tiny 3-foot mini ramp that's in one of my videos years ago. And during that video, I made about 6, 7. I was like, I've got it. And by the end of the video, they were not bad. And of course, I was thought, what's it going to be like tomorrow? Wow, it's going to be amazing. And I turned up the next day and I couldn't do one for literally an hour and a half. And at the end of that hour and a half, I picked up the board and into the hedge, and then immediately checked myself and gave myself a telling off. Because that's something that used to happen all the time when I played golf. And I had to stop playing golf because I lost my favourite 9-iron because I threw it in a fit of rage and it ended up getting stuck up a tree and I couldn't get it back. And without that 9-iron, all was lost. So sometimes it gets a bit frustrating. Repetition is the key. For me, I don't consider I really got a trick until I can consistently land it 10 out of 10 tries. That's great, man. Yeah. I've come to this new one of 3 in a row, which is quite a good one. 10 out of 10 tries is a good one. I did a video not long ago, which was a drill where I tried to do 10 back to back. So for the axle stall, just to drum it in, I did on the mini ramp just 10. So 5 on each side. And that was the drill. Just see if you can get to 10 axle stalls without falling off. And then by the end of the session, it was 10 nice axle stalls, locking in correctly as you would like, with a nice feel and a nice cadence. And I've taken that to other things. When I did the nose stall, I tried to do nose stall to tail stall. I think there's another video on that where try and do 10 of those, 5 on each side in a row. And I guess you can up that. And there's something quite cathartic and quite hypnotic about going and doing a session. It's not a spectator sport, so it's one for when you're on your own. But I sometimes like just going to a ramp and just doing one trick or 1 or 2 tricks. One of my favourite feelings on a mini ramp is just doing a rock to fakie, then a fakie rock. Back and forth for as long as I fancy. And I do feel guilty if other people are there because it's like, who is this clown? But I just love the feeling of it, and it still exceeds my expectation because it's something I never thought I'd be able to do on a skateboard. I remember watching the Braille channel when I first started, and Aaron Cairo did a rock fakie and a tail stall, and I was like, whoa! Oh, can you imagine being able to do that? I'd be happy. I'd like hang up my, I'd finish right there if I could do that. And of course, the reality of skateboarding is it's instant that you've done it once. What's next? Right, revert. Whoa, you're never happy. Nice one. Wow, my goodness me, we've managed to natter on for 44 minutes without even breaking a sweat, so to speak. I'm out of tea. Hopefully you've all got your beverage and you're all relaxing back. So yeah, thank you to everybody for chipping in. That was a lively discussion. and a lovely bit of skateboarding chat. And a heartfelt thanks for, excuse me, a heartfelt thanks to anybody who has watched a video, liked a video, subscribed to the channel. It really is humbling, and I'm amazed. And it's lovely to get out and meet some of you dudes, and it's always a positive experience, and it's so lovely to skateboard with people. And yeah, it's just the best time, isn't it? So that's in my golf Happy Gilmore moment. Yeah, definitely a lot of that. Breaking of the club. Rock fakie tail stall to infinity was my childhood, said Neil. Brilliant. Yeah, Sebastian says thanks for the tutorials. Yeah, nice one, dude. Yeah, I'm going to keep rocking on. There's quite a few tricks that I'm knocking on the door of, so I still want to get those. Agree with what you said, John, about the vert, but I think it's the mental barrier weighs a lot more than the actual difficulty. I think some grind tricks in smaller ramps require more skill but less courage. I definitely agree with that. 100%. The irony is that the mechanics of the vert drop-in is easier than dropping in on a really whippy quarter pipe, because you've got all the time in the world to sleigh ride down, and you can alter your positioning a little bit. And that Mount Hawk vert ramp, apart from being terrifying, the actual mechanics of it you've got all day. Whereas I think it's a game of opposites, because a beginner would go, well, I'll go and learn to drop in on the little ramp, and we've all seen what happens. You just haven't got time to react, and you're on the floor before you can know it. And I found that with street skating. I thought I'll go for the smallest ledge I can possibly find, and everything just happens too quick. You end up really hurt my shoulder actually trying to ollie onto a ledge, and I over-ollied, and the wheels went on the top where someone had quite rightly waxed it, because it is a ledge, and they just wheels whipped out, and I went so fast that I couldn't even get my arm out to stop myself. So I just went from 6 foot up onto my shoulder, and the ledge was probably about that high. So that is well, and oh my goodness, it was white as a sheet. Through a whitey. That's probably the most painful thing I've ever done, apart from my ACL or my hamstring. Those are both pretty emotional as well. Oh, John, are most of your subscribers in the US or the UK? Do you have groupies? Oh my goodness. I have looked at the analytics, and YouTube is amazing. It provides you the exact analytics, and yeah, about 60% of my demographic are in the US, about 20% are in Australia, and then the other 20% are based around Europe, which I found staggering and amazing and humbling, because I assumed that it would be people, from the British people, but I guess the American guys like the accent, so they're willing to forgive the rest just to hear a bit of English stuff. I had a comment once on one of my videos that just said, yeah, boy, you are English. So, I think the person who commented was amazed that I actually had an English accent and was from England. Cindy Winter, you're in this bro. Yeah, thanks for all the effort and continue putting into your videos. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Cindy. I really enjoyed doing it. I like the nitty gritty of putting them together and trying to make them look and be edited a bit better. I find that bit quite exciting, and it also gives me an excuse to record a bit of music to go with them. And as I say, the main idea to start with was to force me into becoming better at skateboarding, because as soon as I started skateboarding, I was like, oh, I've got to get better at this yesterday. I've got to get good at this. I love this, and even though I don't believe that age is a factor at all, and I'm quite against the idea of age being of any relevance, you've got to be realistic with the amount of time left, and mortality becomes ever so more in focus. I'm now 48 years old. So, you've got to be realistic. Even if I've only got 30 years more, which would be amazing, it's still only 30. So time's a talking. Got to get cracking. Nadie, music production, bad idea. Best investment you will ever make. Oh, I'm not sure what that's related to. Golf clubs, maybe. Yeah, it would be a poor idea for me to invest in golf clubs because they will get broken. Nice one. Well, good stuff. I reckon we could bring her into land at that point, unless anybody's got any more stuff. Pads. Oh, we're talking about pads. Yes, pads are an interesting one to talk about, and we can talk about it right now. I think, in terms of, I think pads are a little bit misunderstood by people that don't wear pads. And I guess the real advantage of pads that I found was once you learn to use them, as a sliding device, you can bail out of things that are pretty terrifying, and you can reduce the risk of injury, because running out of things, no matter how nimble and fit you are, there is always a chance you'll step back on the board, which is the worst slam in the world. And anybody who's done it, I mean, that is my worst fear. So knee sliding, I've had ones where I'm knee sliding with one knee still on the board, and yeah, you get a bit of a scuffed shin, but it's still way more preferable than stepping back on the board. So for me, learning tricks on bigger transition, knee pads are a bit of a game changer. And then in terms of elbow pads, I use those to slide as well. And if you wear nice big ones, I wear the Killer Pro ones. I do find if I come down hard, I will still get a swellbow, because those pads are not really, then if they've got a cap on, they're not really designed. They're designed to slide out and dissipate the energy that way. So if you go down and you bang, stop it right on the end, I still get a swellbow. But I do think, what on earth would that be like without that pad on there? And of course, it would probably be a break. So it's worth for that. I think the most misunderstood one are wrist guards. And you hear that classic story, yeah, but you just break your arm further up there. It's like, no, you don't. The whole point of a wrist guard is a sliding device that dissipates energy, preferably to your elbow pads. And obviously your elbow is a much harder thing with a much bigger sliding device. So the way I use wrist guards, because I'm a guitar player, it's not really an option. It would be foolish for me to put myself in a perilous situation without some sort of protection. And I've sort of cultivated a technique of sliding my hand forwards, which dissipates the energy from falling, and then put it onto the elbow, which then slides. And all of that sliding is a dissipation of energy as you go. So that's sort of pads for me in a nutshell. I prefer not to wear them on smaller track. I love the feel of no pads, but I only do that when I'm confident, and there's a level of skating that I can now work within, where I'm confident I know what's going to happen. I know what happens when it goes wrong, and I know how to get out of it with no pads. But I would never skate, for instance, bigger transition or try and learn harder tricks without some sort of protection, as is seen in my video. And the one that's non-negotiable is a helmet, which I promised my wife I'd wear. And I'm quite inspired by Andy Anderson and Mike V, and so the helmet seems to be a good thing. I've got two nippers, and it seems to make sense that if I wear it all the time, do as I say, not as I do. It's easier to lead from the front with that one, I think. So, but everyone's got their own opinions, and everybody, it's totally down to the individual. So yeah, I think there's benefits, but I do feel I skate better without pads on smaller transitions. I do feel that I have more of a good feel and a style, and I do enjoy it more. The adrenaline's definitely more up there. So it's personal preference and risk management and what you're willing to put in. I think if you're a young nipper and you haven't got a family and you're not paying a mortgage, then go for your life. Down the stairs set you go, son. I need a new mini ramp trick to try. Give me a challenge. Oh, Thomas, give me one that you've just learned. Give me one that you've just got under your belt. That's going to be coming up in a minute. I like to try and build the next trick off of something I've already got. I find that incremental approach sort of, so say for instance, you've got a rock to fakie. It makes sense that you might try the rock and roll, especially if you've got a kick turn and a rock to fakie. You can sort of, what I mean? It's like combinations. You've just done the half cab rock and roll. Oh, wicked. Well, try doing a half cab pivot. So you come up, same as you would a half cab rock and roll, but instead of the truck pivoting on the wall of the ramp, try and get the wheel to lap over onto the coping so the truck grinds for an instant, and then you plonk down and come back in. That's a nice one to try. And it's a weird one because you might find that you end up feeling they're easier or more consistent once you get them. When I have a bit of a mental block on the half cab rock to fakie or the nose, the one on the nose spinny one, I usually just pop the truck up on the coping and do a little pivot round because you're stood more up on the ramp and you sort of seems to have a higher success rate. So you might want to try that one. I was out learning the rock to fakie this morning after watching your video, age 35 from Brighton. David Young, yes, that's what we like to hear, David. Yeah, preferably alone, coming a cropper. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've got an amazing video of me, probably about 3 stone heavier than I am now because I lost a bit of weight through skateboarding. A good fat rubbish middle-aged bloke trying to rock fakie in Lyme Regis and just on a 2-foot ramp just going flying. Oh my good. Is that a half cab pivot back to fakie? Yeah, so come in fakie. I'll grab my board. So yeah, so come up. So this will be a half cab. Woo, bump, rock fakie in, and then just go that little bit further. So here's the coping, and then just woo, and then it will just come off, and then rock fakie back in. It might be a nice little one to add on. And if you've got that one, then just do a switch version of that. So instead of doing the half cab rock to fakie, do come in with your foot slightly on the nose and do the nose to back in, so fakie rock. So nose pivot fakie rock, which is exact mirror image. I did a video quite a while back where I tried to mirror image as many tricks as I could and tried to make them look like they're actually switch. So for instance, a rock to fakie, if you put a mirror on that, a switch rock to fakie would be a fakie rock. But if you do it with your feet in the right position, you can actually try a switch rock to fakie, which is the same movement as a fakie rock. Oh my goodness, anybody that's not a skateboarder would not have a clue what is going on. This is crazy. The nose pivot one is strangely called a slappy. Ah, nice one. Yeah. Do I need to pull the front trucks like in a manual when I drop back in from a rock to fakie? Because some say that it's a must to pull up the trucks like on a manual just to transfer the weight. The way that I was taught to rock to fakie by Greg Nowick, who is an amazing skateboarder and a great skateboarding coach, is the rock fakie, you come up the ramp, you pop a manual, the front wheels should not touch the coping, and then the board rocks forward on about this part of the board, so just over halfway back. And then when you come back in, the wheel's totally clear, so you're manning back in. And the reason for that is that is what a rock fakie further down the line looks like. And when you get onto the vert ramp, that's what it's like. You literally can't afford to hit the wheels on the coping either way for obvious reasons. So that's the whole thing to get used to. So if you can clear the wheels both ways, you're cooking on gas. But if you go back and watch the video I did about the 10 phases to rock fakie, I go through all of it, because my original rock fakie was to roll the wheels over the coping on the way up and roll the wheels over the coping on the way back. And of course you can get away with that on a certain size of ramp and a certain height of coping, but as soon as it gets a bit more steeper on the ramp and also a bit more proud on the coping, you're going to fall off every time, because you'll either dislodge your feet as you go up over the coping on the way up and your feet will go wrong, or when you come back in you'll clip the truck on the way back in, and that is emotional. That is the worst thing that can happen. So yeah, clear the wheels both ways, dude. Question for the channel: most people land axle still hanging in the coping from the back wheel. They say it's safer for hangs. I learned naturally to pivot over the front toe wheel and never hang up. Yeah, I think what it is, and again I cover this in my this is not some terrible like constant self-promotion for the videos, but my 10 phases to axle stall, or 10 phases of axle stall video, I go through that very thing because I found the same. I think I think the popular advice for the axle stall is to have the back wheel jammed down on the coping on your heel. And then as you pivot back in, it's supposed to stop the hang up. And I found very much the opposite, because I was missing the key ingredient of information to make that work, which is as you come off the coping, to change the pressure from your heel, which is holding it on, to the toe. And for some reason, I never got given that piece of information, or I didn't process it correctly. So as I came back in, I would just keep my foot pressure exactly the same as when I was locked on the heel side wheel, and it would hang up. And I'd be surprised. The surprise on my face as I hit the flat bottom must have been a picture, because I was following the video saying, yeah, nudge the back wheel over so that you can't hang up. But I don't think many tutorials actually go that extra mile and say, as you come in, transfer your foot pressure from heel to toe. And the one thing that you have to do when the toe wheel is up against the coping is to push off your toe to come back in, which naturally stops you hanging up. So I would totally agree that doing what most videos tell you to do, doing the opposite of that and having the toe wheel up against the toe coping. If you press off the toe wheel, it works every single time. You'll never hang up. But that is controversial because most people want the other wheel the other way. I had a choice between XC and Adrenaline Corby last week. I went to Corby and found it underwhelming, to be honest. There's a small section and then you need to be a ninja for the rest of it. Have you been? Yeah, I went, Wayne, years ago when I was an absolute beginner, and they had the best vert ramp ever. It was a skate-like vert ramp, and I was sort of tinkering with just pumping, and I used to like challenging myself to try and get up high, pumping on a vert ramp. And it was my dream, and sadly that vert ramp got taken away, and the rest of it wasn't great for me, but I was a beginner, so I only had a certain perspective. The XC pool is far from rideable if you're a beginner, and that's what I found when I went there as a beginner, and going back was the most exciting thing because I felt I could potter around it with a relative modicum of control. But yeah, the mini ramp, however, XC is absolutely fantastic. It's everything you want in a mini ramp. It's just really long. Sometimes simple is best. I think some people miss out with the skateboard design. They're like, how much stuff can we cram in? Because that's value for money. And it's like, can you just give me like an 80-foot wide mini ramp? Because that would be amazing. They could just go backwards and forwards doing like 40-foot 50-50 grinds. That would be really good. Yeah, I never kick my back wheel out. I just go from toe side and never hang up. Yeah, totally, dude. If you want to check out a really interesting and very good way to do a 50-50 grind, check out Neil's channel where he talks you through how to grind pull coping, because Neil cross-locks the opposite way, which is the way that I cross-lock for my front side grinds, which is to have the toe side wheel up against the coping and the heel side wheel jammed down on the coping. And that on pull coping feels really nice because it just tracks around and you can really lock it on. Really nice to hear that, John and Neil. Yeah, definitely, dude. And John, do you have a regular day job? If so, what is it? Thomas, I don't have a regular day job. I'm a guitar player and I'm self-employed. So it's a bit feast or famine. It's far from regular, but I have been very lucky over the years that it's mostly a 3-course meal. At the least, very rarely a cracker with some Marmite on, and sometimes it has been a little bit of a pig roast. Who knows? But yeah, I've been lucky that I play guitar, and that's what I do. But the skateboarding fits in quite nicely, and that's why I think it's a mystery to some people as to why I can record videos when the skate park is empty. And some of the skate parks I go to are very busy places, but it's just because I've managed to, by trial and error, find out that little, 9:30 on a Tuesday morning in school time, there's never anyone there. So that's when I go and record a video, because I can do it, because, I'm my own boss. 12k, wow, Fernando Ferro. Oh, nice one, dude. Base 66 mini ramp is heaven. Yeah, that looks like the same sort of design thing, Neil, just long and wide, which I really like. So I'm a guitar player too and a skateboarder. I'll tell you what I found over the years. pretty much most skateboarders are either a guitar player, a drummer, or a tattoo artist. That's pretty much it. It's such a creative bunch. There's always some sort of hidden creative thing. You know, guys are making jewelry or making decks or doing a fanzine or making stickers or recording a video or, you know, whatever. There's always being in a band, you know, there's always some sort of thing going on. Living the dream. Yeah, nice one, guys. Wicked. Right. My good, I have overcooked the goose, so to speak. So I'm going to bid you farewell. Thanks very much, everybody. It's been amazing. And thank you very much for subscribing. There'll be another live stream at 13,000. And there'll be a video on the Andy Anderson double-ended deck. There'll be a video on the trucks. Ace trucks. Are they any good? If I was to do a clickbaity title, which I'm rubbish at. And there'll be a video about the I Wonder Cloud wheels on the electric skateboard. So, bidding you farewell. Have a great evening. I'm going to go and watch some racing cars go round a track fast, I reckon. Nice one, guys. Right, let's see if I can make this stop. I always make it stop. Oh, ow.